Friday, November 6th. It's now 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, and in our new instantaneous, instant bite, eyeball-grabbing world of media, everybody knows that this morning we got an employment report for the month of October that was way stronger than anybody thought. That is, I mean, things like payroll growth of almost double the forecast, wage growth at double the forecast, and that means that the Fed coming off zero in December is about as sure a thing as you're ever going to see. And even a lot of the non-financial media gets the idea that the financial markets will soon begin to think about, okay, what's next? And history, in the modern era, after World War II, for the next 50 years, whenever the Fed began to raise its rates, it didn't stop until there was a recession. The notion that the Fed can somehow get its overnight cost of money to a nice zone where the economy behaves just the way the Fed wants it to behave never happened. The closest we came was in the 1990s, but even that, there were a lot of illusions involved in that. It's in the nature of capitalism, so we think, that it tends to run in a self-reinforcing spiral up or a self-reinforcing spiral down. And the Fed has the ability to tip it from one phase to the other and maybe moderate the slope of the two phases. But trying to get to some steady state deal, lost on the media, financial and otherwise, and really important. Important Fed speakers, as opposed to the fringe guys, have been telling us for months that the Fed thinks that the U.S. economy is growing too fast now and has been growing too fast for most of the last 2 years. That will come as a surprise to most Americans. The polling of most Americans is anything but that kind of positive about the economy. The Fed says that the maximum GDP growth rate ahead is something like 2%, and maybe not that high. And the maximum sustained job growth is maybe 100,000 jobs a month going forward. And so here we are. Either the economy is going to slow down of its own accord, or the Fed's going to do it. As I closed the copy nearby, people ask me all the time about the Fed in election years. And historically, the Fed in 1972 dressed the marketplace for Nixon's re-election. And it's a permanent embarrassment. Black mark on the Fed's record. The Fed, before and since, before an election, seeks to be invisible. Here comes Fed tightening on an extended, low slope because it thinks the economy is growing too fast now. We've got an amazing mob of people running for president. If word begins to leak out to these candidates that the Fed thinks the economy is growing too fast now and it intends to slow down the economy, I have some concern next year that these candidates will enter a leapfrog to see who can pose the deepest threat to the Fed and its independence in an election year, saying things that the American people are going to want to hear. Is this economy growing too fast? Horse feathers. No, it's not. A good 2/3 of the American people feel that way, and I don't know how that one's going to pan out. But the long, long wait for liftoff, Merry Christmas. It'll be about then. Have a good weekend.